AmericanHistory.com if people want to read this article from American History Magazine. As always, Mr. Brookhiser, we appreciate your coming over and chatting with our viewers.
Okay, thanks for having me.
House is now in session.
From the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., December 14, 2011. I hereby appoint the Honorable Daniel Webster to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 5, 2011, the Chair will now recognize members from a list submitted by the majority and minority leaders for the morning hour debate. The Chair will alternate recognition between the parties, each party being limited to 1 hour, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes. But in no event shall the debate go beyond 11:50 a.m. The Chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jones, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Over the past weekend, an article in a North Carolina paper was titled, "U.S. Envoy Troops Could Stay in Afghanistan." Subtitle, "The White House echoed that 2014 is not a deadline for total withdrawal." And it was published, and I'd like to submit the article for the record, Mr. Speaker. Ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
This is coming, I will read the last sentence of the article. At a conference in Bonn, Germany last week, President Karzai and other Afghan officials called for political and military support for at least another decade. This is coming from a man who, according to CNN, told a group of tribal elders last month that America is powerful, has more money, but we are lions here. Lions have the habit of not liking strangers getting into their house. He continued by saying, again, I want to quote President Karzai, and I quote, "We want to say that Iran is our brother. During the years of jihad, Iran has been one of the best countries for hospitality for Afghans. They are our brothers." You know, Mr. Speaker, it just amazes me that he keeps saying these things that he doesn't even like us, but when he needs us, and then he likes us. And our young men are over there losing their legs, their arms, and dying. And our young women, too, who are in the military. How in the world can we continue to spend $10 billion a month when this man says that Iran is our friend, they're our brother? The American people are sick and tired, quite frankly, of being in Afghanistan. Recently, when I spoke on the floor, I received a letter shortly thereafter from Jean Bonnie Smith from Idaho regarding a recent floor speech that I gave. And I want to quote a couple of comments, and then I'd like to ask unanimous consent that I might submit her a letter for the record, Mr. Speaker. Everything you said made perfect sense. These are things I've been thinking for 2 or 3 years, too. Karzai's most recent remarks were just the last slap in the face of the American people. How can you convince your fellow Republicans of these truths? We cannot just say on this was War Inc. course, cannot stay on this course, and waiting for the next election. It is criminal to our troops. Mr. Speaker, there are so many people across this nation that just wonder why we continue to support a corrupt leader in a country that will never, never change. Mr. Speaker, I hope that as we get into the new year, that those of us in both parties can find legislation, as I have worked with Mr. McGovern before, that we can submit in the House and get this House to get behind getting our troops out, because believe me, we'll be there for 5 to 10 more years, and it's not fair and it's not right. Mr. Speaker, beside me is from the news in the Greensboro News Record. It was a few months ago, but this tells it all. The title says, "Get Out." And their soldiers taking a transfer case, a flag-draped transfer case off the plane. Mr. Speaker, it is time to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. It is time to fix the problems here in America, create jobs in America, and we can certainly use that $10 billion a month that we're sending to Afghanistan and spend it right here on the American people and do what's right to get America back on its feet. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will close, as I always do, from the bottom of my heart. God, please bless our men and women in uniform. God, please bless the families of our men and women in uniform. God, please hold in your arms the families who've given a child dying for freedom in Afghanistan and Iraq. And, Mr. Speaker, I ask God to bless the House and Senate that we will do what's right in the eyes of God. I ask God to give strength, wisdom, and courage to President Obama. And 3 times I will ask, God, please, God, please, God, please continue to bless America. And I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One thing that most of the Occupy Wall Street protesters and the majority of the Tea Party advocates agree upon is that the United States is not on a sustainable path. The economy is still floundering. We are in too many cases losing the competition to other countries in things like building and maintaining our infrastructure for the future and keeping up with the advances of education. We have the world's most expensive health care system that leaves too many people without coverage and provides the nation overall with mediocre results. Americans get sick more often, take longer to get well, and die sooner than most of our European competitors. And half that cost is loaded on the backs of the employers and embedded in the price of their products. But perhaps the most glaring example of unsustainability is not our health care system or our tax system. It is the massive defense and security spending with escalating costs, which is sadly not strategically oriented. We cannot continue to spend almost as much as the rest of the world, friend and foe alike, combined. Our military was stressed and continues to be hobbled by the reckless action in Iraq and further challenged by the war in Afghanistan. Yet we have a defense reauthorization that we will be considering on the floor today that ignores the big picture, does not lay the foundation for dramatic scaling back of open-ended spending commitments, and especially dealing with issues like a nuclear weapon system far more expensive and out of proportion to what we will ever need or use. There are patterns of deployment that cry out for reform. There are long overdue elements to deal with cost effectiveness and the environmental footprint. Energy costs of $400 a gallon for fuel to the front, billions of dollars just for air conditioning, are symbols of a system that is not sustainable. We need key improvements. Unfortunately, we're on a path of trying to do more than we can or that we should do. The greatest threat to our future is losing control of our ability to sustain the military because we can't sustain the economy. Unlike the past, we feel now that we don't have enough money to train and educate our next generation. It is a problem now that American infrastructure is not keeping pace with the demands of our communities, let alone the global economy. We should reject this blueprint. We should begin the process now of right-sizing the military, of getting rid of the burdensome nuclear overreach and patterns from the past, spending on things that would help us with the Cold War or World War II, maybe even do a slightly better job on the misguided mission in Iraq, but not the most pressing challenges for American security in this century. We have the most powerful military in the world, and will by far, even if we invest substantially or less. Our problem is that the American public is being ill-served by a government that's not investing in our future and an economy that will not be able to sustain ever-increasing military commitments, to say nothing of the demands investing in our communities and our people, especially the young. I was from the beginning appalled at the burden we were asking of our young men and women to bear when we put them in the reckless Iraq adventure. People who are in the front deserve our best in terms of equipment and facilities. They and their families need to be well cared for, not just in the field, but when they come home. We can do this, even in difficult times, if we get our priorities right. And we can get our priorities straight and the job done with less money. The cuts initiated by Secretary Gates and the Obama administration, plus what would be required by sequestration, would only bring our defense establishment to the level of 2007, adjusted for inflation. There is no question that over the next 10 years, we can manage that transition, and that we will have to do it. What is sad is that the bill we'd be considering today doesn't make the progress we need to get us there.
The Chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has passed with amendments H.R. 2667 to reauthorize the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 and for other purposes, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Guthrie, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to a great friend and a remarkable Kentuckian, Miss Phyllis Causey. In January, after 39 years of honorable and selfless public service, she will retire. Her Lewisburg High School yearbook in 1968 contained a prophecy for her saying, Phyllis will be in President Nixon's cabinet in 10 years. And although President Nixon resigned while she was at basic training for the Army Reserve in '74, and she never did make it to the White House, lucky for us, she still decided to follow her passion for politics and public service. Phyllis graduated from Hopkinsville Community College in 1970 and received a bachelor's degree from Western Kentucky University in 1972. Upon her graduation, Phyllis worked for WKU for the following 23 years. In 1995, she was hired as a field representative for Congressman Ron Lewis, and when I was elected to replace Congressman Lewis upon his retirement, Phyllis was kind enough to continue to working for me. While traveling as a candidate for Congress, I met so many individuals whose first question to me was, are you going to keep Phyllis if you're elected? Their question was a testament to Phyllis's compassion and hard work and dedication to the individuals in the county she served. She was, and still is, irreplaceable. Phyllis grew up on a farm in Logan County where her parents taught her the value of hard work and the importance of giving and caring for others. And throughout the nearly 20 years I have known Phyllis, she has exemplified these values every day. She has been such an inspiration to me, and she has always been devoted to the causes she believes in church, family, and friends. Phyllis is an incredible wife, daughter, sister, and mother. I know her family, especially her husband Larry, will be happy to have her around more often. And although I will miss her, I know this is no way a goodbye. I am positive she will continue to be active and touch the lives of those of us who have had the privilege of calling her a friend. I ask my colleagues to join me in honoring Mrs. Phyllis Causey, who exemplifies what it means to be an American, a Kentuckian, a Christian, and a public servant. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. DeFazio, for 5 minutes.
Well, we've all heard of too big to fail when Bush Secretary of the Treasury Hank Paulson and President Bush bailed out a bunch of miscreants on Wall Street for their gambling and mistakes and putting taxpayers at risk. Some principle that does not belong in the policy of this country. But now we've got another one. Too big to be counted. Too big to be counted. This year the Pentagon will spend $670 billion, about $2 billion a day, and it doesn't know where its money is. In fact, it often doesn't even know if it has spent money. Here's a few examples. In March 2000, the Pentagon Inspector General found that $7.6 trillion in accounting entries, one-third of them, $2.3 trillion, or $8,000 for every man, woman, child in America, were completely untraceable. Completely untraceable. $2.23 trillion. Don't know where it went. Don't know if they bought something and it was delivered. Who knows? Then in 2003, they found, and this is something I've talked about all through my years in Congress, is the so-called inventory system at the Pentagon, which is Absolutely absurd. The Army lost track of 56 airplanes, 32 tanks, and 36 missile command launch units. And while military leaders back in 2003 were scrambling around trying to find chemical and biological suits for our troops because of the risks in the Middle East and Afghanistan, the Pentagon was selling suits at surplus on the Internet for 2 cents on the dollar. No suits for the troops. They're very expensive. Over here, we're selling them for 2 cents on the dollar to the general public. What is this all about? Another year, they spent $100 million for refundable airline tickets that they didn't use. Hey, what's $100 million at the Pentagon? Chump change. They didn't ask for the refunds. They just stuck them in a drawer. $100 million that didn't go to serve our national defense, supply our troops, or be saved and defray our deficit. In fiscal year 10, half of the Pentagon's $366 billion in contract awards were not competed. Half. Now, you know, these are pretty shocking numbers. And actually, Mr. Garrett and I on the floor here last spring got a little amendment in the Department of Defense bill to require that they conform to a 1994 law. 1994, Congress said the Pentagon should be audited by 1997. Unfortunately, every year, the appropriators have said, oh, no, we can't. That's too much to ask of the Pentagon. Well, we got a little amendment in the bill here, kind of snuck it by the DOD hawks over there who are protecting this incompetence over there, and they would have been audited. Senate did the same thing. But to the rescue, the conference committee behind closed doors. I was one of very few on the floor here who voted against closing the doors of the conference, because they don't close the doors of the conference committee over there to talk about classified things that could risk ours. They do it to cut deals like this. So yesterday they decided the Pentagon will not be audited. It can't be audited. In fact, Mr. Conway, one of our colleagues, said it would be insulting to require that we audit the Pentagon in a mandatory way by 2014. I mean, that's only 2 years from now. That's only a couple more $1 trillion from now. Boy, we wouldn't want to know where that money's going. We wouldn't want to know whether they're surplusing out stuff our troops need while they're paying for a contractor who didn't have to compete to buy the same stuff, and they say there's a shortage and we don't have enough money. We wouldn't want to know these things. So we closed the conference and cut these stinking deals. So here it is. Once again, too big to be counted. This does not serve our men and women in uniform well. It does not serve the national defense needs of the United States of America, and it sure as heck doesn't serve the interests of the American taxpayers. The Pentagon must be audited like every other agency of federal government, and we should also throw in the Federal Reserve. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first today I rise to congratulate Tricia Miller of Center County on receiving the 2012 Pennsylvania Teacher of the Year Award. An English teacher from the Penns Valley Area School District since 1994. Tricia is the first Center County educator to receive the award in its 54-year history. In addition to teaching English, in 2009, Tricia became the Penns Valley Literacy Coach for grades 7 through 12, where she has introduced new instructional strategies in the classroom. Many variables go into a great education, but it's having great teachers that matter most. Tricia Miller is the type of teacher that goes above and beyond. She is tirelessly committed to a high achievement and the success of her students, which she has demonstrated year after year. Tricia Miller is deserving of this award and recognition. We thank her for her commitment to the teaching profession and are proud that she will go to represent the state in the National Teacher of the Year competition. Congratulations, teacher Tricia Miller. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to take time this morning to address and to celebrate a piece of legislation that we passed out of the House of Representatives last evening, largely, almost solely, with just Republican support. but a bill that deserved bipartisan support for it's great for the entire nation. This is a bill that addresses many of the extension bills that were lingering and would soon expire at the end of the year. In particular, there were three parts I just want to touch on briefly this morning that are incredibly important for the citizens of this nation, and I think also parts that are transformational. And it's rare we see a transformational piece of legislation out of this body. First of all, the tax cuts. Tax cuts for all Americans. This is a tax cut that was actually paid for, not one that added to the national debt or certainly one that threatened in any way the integrity of the Social Security Fund. I'm very proud that, to be able to support this bill and to do it in a proper way as to pay for and allow the citizens of this country to keep money in their own pockets. Certainly they're better prepared to make decisions on how money is spent. Secondly is the changes in the extension of unemployment compensation. We've taken steps that have moved unemployment towards a workforce development program as opposed to just an entitlement program. Unemployment, we've returned it to is important and should be used to return people to work. And the provisions of the bill that was approved yesterday are do just that. It allows states to do drug screening. We put a lot of money into retraining people for jobs when they're on unemployment or through the Workforce Investment Act, only to find that there's a percentage that aren't eligible to work because they can't pass a drug test. This provision gives people a reason to clean their lives up. It takes it from 99 to 59 weeks, which is an appropriate move. And one of the last provisions, which I think is maybe one of the most important, if you're an individual and need unemployment compensation and you don't have a high school degree or a GED, it requires you to enroll in a qualified GED program. Education is the key to success in this country. And finally, as a part of this bill that I was proud to support, it provides 2 years of preventing over 27% cut to the Medicare Part B Medicare reimbursement rates for both hospitals and physicians. As a former health care provider, a manager within rural hospitals, I know how devastating those cuts would be. And I was very proud that not only that we addressed that, but we did it with more certainty than it has ever done in the past since 1997 when we did that for a 2-year period. Mr. Speaker, I'm very appreciative of my colleagues for supporting this bill, passing it out of the House, and I would ask, Mr. Speaker, that the Senate give it the same full due diligence and quickly moving it out of that side of Congress so that the American people can benefit from all the provisions within that extension package. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, the New York Times reported that our ambassador in Afghanistan, Ryan C. Crocker, told a group of journalists that U.S. troops could stay in Afghanistan long past the President's 2014 deadline if the Afghan government asked us to stay. The very next day, the New York Times reported Afghan President Hamid Karzai blaming foreigners, including the United States, for the corruption that is so rampant in his government. And he had the audacity to say this at an event marking International Anti-Corruption Day. Mr. Speaker, Afghanistan is one of the most corrupt countries on the face of the earth. Transparency International ranks Afghanistan as the second most corrupt government, right behind Somalia and North Korea, which tied for first place. So I ask my colleagues, why should we shed a single drop more of blood, sacrifice the lives of our servicemen and women for a corrupt government that doesn't even have the decency to take responsibility for its own failures? Enough is enough. We have spent over $440 billion on military operations alone in Afghanistan since 9/11. In 2012, we aim to spend another $113 billion. By this time next year, our total spending on the war in Afghanistan, just the military operations, will be around $557 billion. That's over $500 billion. And when I say spend, I really mean borrow, because from day one of the Afghanistan war, and the Iraq war for that matter, we have not paid for the military operations in these wars. We have borrowed nearly every single penny of that money, put it on the national credit card, let it rack up over a quarter of our cumulative deficit, and helped explode our debt year after year for a decade. Sadly, when it comes to paying for this war, too many in Washington are silent. Mr. Speaker, over 1,800 servicemen and women have died in Afghanistan, 42 of them from Massachusetts, over 14,000 wounded, husbands, fathers, wives, and mothers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, holes created in families and communities that can never be filled, losses that will be felt for a generation or more. Each month, the tally of dead and wounded gets higher. 2010 was the deadliest year for American troops in the history of the Afghanistan war, and 2011 a close second. We've become numb to the numbers. We don't even hear them anymore. But these losses resonate around family kitchen tables in the homes of the deployed every day and night of the year. We all know that the human cost of the war is found not only on the battlefields of Afghanistan, it's also found in veterans hospitals and counseling clinics around the country. We continue to struggle with soaring rates of traumatic brain injuries, post-traumatic stress, and suicides among our soldiers and our veterans. So many leave the service or try and carry on military careers wounded in both body and soul. Now, even if we were to leave Afghanistan tomorrow, and I'm so very glad to see that our troops are coming home from Iraq, our war debt will continue for decades. And for what, Mr. Speaker? For 10 years of support for a corrupt government in Afghanistan? 10 years of sacrificing our brave, uniformed men and women? 10 years of borrowing money we never had? This war is no longer about going after al-Qaeda, which I voted to do. Osama bin Laden is dead. Instead, we're now bogged down in a seemingly endless occupation in support of an incompetent and corrupt Karzai government. This is not what I voted for. So yes, I'm really worried when I pick up the newspaper and read Ambassador Crocker saying we may be in Afghanistan for years beyond 2014. The American people are way ahead of the Congress and the White House on this issue. They want this war ended now, but it seems that Washington just doesn't get it. But when all is said and done, the responsibility for continuing or ending the war is right here in this chamber. We approved this war. We must now take the responsibility to end it. This is why, Mr. Speaker, I will vote against the conference report on the FY 2012 National Defense Authorization Bill. The defense bill includes many good and important provisions, but it does nothing, absolutely nothing, to wind down the war in Afghanistan. It's way past time to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. I can't authorize any more funding that doesn't explicitly call on the President to plan and carry out the accelerated removal of our troops. Bring them home, Mr. President. Bring them all home now. I yield back the balance of my time.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate a constituent of Texas District 17. His name is Robert Griffin III of Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and he is the recipient of the 2011 Heisman Trophy for he is a recipient of the 2011 Heisman Memorial Trophy. The son of 2 U.S. Army sergeants, RG3 as he is more popularly known, it epitomizes what it means to be a student athlete and a role model for all Americans. During the Baylor Bears 2011 season, Robert threw for nearly 4,000 yards and had 45 touchdowns. His 72% completion rate placed him among the most accurate passers in the nation, and he was the only player in the country that had at least 3,300 passing yards and 300 rushing yards. He is only one of 3 players in the Football Bowl subdivision history with 10,000 career passing yards and 2,000 career rushing yards. He owns or shares 30 Baylor football records. Among his awards and accolades in 2011 were the Chick Harley Award for the National Player of the Year, the Big 12 Player of the Year, First Team All-American, the Davey O'Brien Award, and of course the 77th Annual Heisman Memorial Trophy, awarded to the most outstanding player in college football each year. He did all of this while leading the Bears to their first 9-win regular season since 1986 and a berth in the Alamo Bowl for 2011. What makes Robert such an excellent role model is that his success at Baylor has not only been on the football field. Robert graduated from Baylor in 3 years with a 3.67 GPA and a degree in political science. He is currently in graduate school pursuing a master's in communication and plans to attend law school in the future. He is a 6-time member of the Big 12 Commissioners Honor Roll and a 2-time Dean's List honoree. This year he was named a second-team academic All-American. Robert is also very active in his community, regularly volunteering for several charities in the Waco area. Robert is also a world-class hurdler and hopes to qualify for the 2012 Olympic team. I am personally very proud of RG3 because he is a fine Christian man and publicly professes his faith in God. I also want to congratulate Baylor University and football coach Art Briles on a great 2011 football season. As Coach Briles says, great things come with great effort, and the Baylor Nation should be justifiably proud of their football team and coaching staff for their great efforts this year. Before I close, I'd like to wish all Americans a safe and fulfilling Christmas season and a holiday season. And I ask that all of us continue to pray for our country and our military men and women during these difficult times. Sick of bears. Thank you. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Rangel, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that my remarks be extended and allowed to be changed.
Without objection.
Thank you. As we move toward the close of this congressional session, I have been embarrassed of the number of the people that have recognized me and asked, what's wrong with the government? What's wrong with the Congress? Why can't you people get along? And it's very difficult and embarrassing to tell them that you really need all parts of the government working together, pushing the boat forward, rowing in the same direction. And when you have somebody that's already said that their primary mission as members of the United States Congress is to get rid of the president, how that is interpreted legislatively, it means that the president cannot offer them anything that would look like he's accomplishing something positive, because it would interfere with their primary goal, which is not economic growth, not jobs, not helping people out when they need a hand up, but it has to show that we want to get rid of Obama. And you can see that even the candidates that want to fill his job, they're not talking about what they're going to do, but the whole campaign is against the president. Now, some people believe, that is those on television, that for all practical purposes that we should not expect that we'll be able to give assistance to our various communities throughout the country because the campaign has started, and so therefore no legislation is going to pass. That's just not so. And you don't have to wait until an election. We haven't been sent down here just to please our voters for what happens in 2012. Each and every day you have a right and an obligation to call the person that you have sent down here to Washington, and if you haven't, someone did. Everybody has a member of this House and 2 members in the other body. Why can't you pick up the phone and ask them and to tell them that what they do in this year before the holidays and what they don't do is going to make a big difference in terms of how you vote when that opportunity comes. So you can put the pressure on. And I might add this too. It is not just the voters that have this obligation to help those that are lesser among us. It's not those that are waiting for a little help, but the Republicans say that the only way you get the help is to cut back in health care. is to support the Keystone pipeline, oil pipeline. All of these things, people don't go to sleep at night wondering about a pipeline. They want to know they got to get any help from their government. And the issues really don't affect the very, very rich. It affects the very, very poor and those in the middle class that are pushing into poverty, where 1 out of 5 kids in the United States of America is born into poverty. I am suggesting that this is not just a plea for economic justice or equity in how we tax people, but it is a moral issue that we should be hearing from our clergy. I'm not talking about Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking about Matthews, where Jesus said, it's how you treat the lesser among us as to how you're going to be judged. And it's not just the Bible. It's not just the Old and New Testament. It's the Quran, it's the Torah, it's Muslims, it's Mormons, it's Christians, it's Jews. It's there. And it would seem to me, if our clergy missed this wonderful opportunity before the Holy Spirit, not to tell us what to do, but to tell us what they think is the right thing that we should be doing. And so as we move into the holidays, please don't think that we have got the other side convinced that they should give relief for unemployed people who paid into a system, who lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Please don't think that they want to protect Social Security, that they want to protect Medicaid and Medicare. No, that's our job to do it. But it's your job to remind us that we have this obligation to do it. And so you're right if you stop us in the street and say that we've lost credibility. All of government, the president, the candidates for president, the Democrats and the Republicans. But what about you? Would you be able to say that you joined in this effort? Would you be able to say you made that telephone call or visit that office? I hope you do, and you can count on many of us that are waiting for that type of support. We need it. Thank you. God bless America.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Maryland, Ms. Edwards, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As families prepare for the holidays, many will gather to watch some of our favorite holiday movies. In my family, we always enjoyed watching How the Grinch Stole Christmas and tuning in to A Christmas Carol, and one of my favorites, It's a Wonderful Life. Well, Mr. Speaker, it won't be necessary to visit the local Red Box or scour the TV guide listings or order the movies on Netflix. Americans across this country can tune into C-SPAN and watch our own version of The Grinch and Ebenezer Scrooge and Henry Potter, our house holiday humbugs, right here on the floor of the House of Representatives. The American people can only hope, however, that they can redeem themselves, our holiday humbugs, the way these characters did. But I fear that's not possible. Yesterday, House Republicans brought to the floor a payroll tax credit, an unemployment insurance proposal trimmed in controversial riders and deceit. The holiday humbugs, the GOP leadership decorated the payroll tax credit and unemployment insurance bill with the controversial Keystone Pipeline rider to sweeten the deal for their caucus. But that wasn't enough. The majority gilded the proposal with cuts to essential health care reform funding, a freeze in federal employee pay for yet another year, and a cut in the length of emergency unemployment insurance, and blocking the administration from moving forward on environmental protections that will help our families breathe, drink, and live more healthily. And now today we've heard from the House holiday humbugs that the big problem facing the unemployed that House Republicans tried to fix yesterday was drug testing for the unemployed. Well, Mr. Speaker, the problem for the unemployed isn't drugs, it's a job. And in the absence of a job, it's an unemployment check. So for the holidays, my Republican colleagues put on their list a proposal that would dip further into the pockets of low and middle income families that buy health insurance in the new health exchanges, And during this holiday season, at a time our nation's economy and consumption are challenged, and at a time when the consumption has grown by only 5% since June 2009, our holiday humbug proposal by Republicans would cut holes in the pockets of millions of our nation's consumers. The legislation passed in the House yesterday would freeze the compensation of 2.65 million federal employees all across this country, federal employees who are consumers. Mr. Speaker, so while the special interests and the Wall Street fat cats and the oil companies are enjoying their large Christmas bonuses, federal employees who've already contributed $60 million in foregone pay for deficit reduction will be required to give up even more. The Republican plan hits struggling families even harder. In fact, the bill passed yesterday by our holiday humbugs eliminates 40 weeks of unemployment insurance. The funding for this program not only helps families check off items on their Christmas list, things like rent, things like child care, and things like groceries. The check also brings funding for money back into the American economy. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that for every dollar of benefits and spent on unemployment compensation, it generates about $2 of additional economic activity. That's money directly into our economy. The Republican proposal passed in the House yesterday would eliminate over $22 billion in economic growth and result in the loss of 140,000 jobs in 2012. That's what happened in this House yesterday. My colleague, Sandra Levin from Michigan, recognized that the legislative holiday gift that the Republicans thought they were providing the American worker this Christmas is just one big lump of coal. Their proposal would leave millions of Americans out in the cold this holiday season while imposing additional barriers to receiving assistance and diminishing the protections of unemployed workers. Throughout the day yesterday, the holiday humbugs kept trying to point to places where we could compromise. Well, the American people are asking, why not simply compromise on a clean extension of the payroll tax credit for 160 million workers and unemployment insurance? Why not ensure that 160 million hard-working families can benefit from the average of $1,000 they'll receive from the payroll tax credit, again, right into the economy? Yesterday, the Republican majority decided they'd rather risk raising taxes and digging into the pockets of families all across this country. Well, Mr. Speaker, not even Scrooge could do what we saw on the floor yesterday. And in the end, our holiday humbugs, the Grinch, Mr. Scrooge, and even Mr. Potter learned that there's redemption. It's time for our House Republicans to learn the same. And I urge the majority to instead bring to the floor a sensible, thoughtful piece of legislation to extend unemployment compensation and the payroll tax credit. And with that, I yield.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Ohio, Ms. Fudge, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cleveland. Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, after a year of attempts to eliminate Medicare and obstruct any kind of jobs bill, the Republican agenda is clear. Eliminate the deficit at any cost, including at the expense of our most vulnerable, while adversely impacting our economic recovery. More than 1.6 million American children were homeless at some point in 2010. These are children under the age of 18 living in emergency shelters or in shared housing, and many are living on the street. Now, in 2011, the number of homeless children continues to increase. There are more homeless children today than after the natural disasters of Hurricane Katrina and Rita. The recession's economic devastation has left 1 in 45 children homeless. Millions of Americans are out of work and we have pushed unemployment rates to levels not seen in decades. We continue to see poverty soar. In 2010, nearly 1 in 6 Americans was living in poverty. As poverty surged to its highest level since 1993, median household incomes declined, which is why it is maddening to me that we in Congress can't agree or even come to a point where we can agree to compromise on policies that will help struggling Americans. In the 49 weeks since the Republicans took control of this House, they have failed to pass a single bill to encourage job growth. They pledged to focus on economic recovery, but they have failed to deliver. I have sponsored 4 jobs bills in the last 6 months, but none of them has been brought up for a vote. The majority has done as it has tried to advance their own, all they have done is try to advance their own political agenda. Their priority is clear: eliminate the deficit at any cost on the backs of the most vulnerable. This year, Republicans proposed a budget that would privatize Medicare and make Medicaid a block grant, sacrificing care for our seniors, our sick, and our poor. The Republican budget sliced more than $6 trillion with a T over the next decade from Medicaid, SNAP, Medicare, and many other programs supporting low and middle-income Americans. The majority suggests these drastic changes while leaving in place tax cuts for the wealthiest and $40 billion in big oil tax loopholes. The majority's budget would devastate poor communities and middle-class Americans. It pushes seniors into the hands of private insurance companies and forces them to pay more out-of-pocket expenses. What we need is a bold approach, Mr. Speaker, to maintaining these programs rather than finding ways to defund or to derail them. Almost 6 million workers have been unemployed for more than a year in this country, so we know there is a strong need to extend unemployment insurance. What we've seen this week makes me skeptical. Here we are at the end of one of the most unproductive congressional sessions we've had in recent history. In this end-of-the-year drama, Republicans play the role of the Grinch who stole Christmas. Yesterday, the House passed a bill that slashes unemployment insurance by 40 weeks in the states that are hardest hit, including my own home state of Ohio. If signed into law, beneficiaries without a high school degree would be denied insurance unless they use the benefits we're giving them to pay for getting their GED. The bill also allows states to force recipients to take drug tests. In 2010, unemployment benefits kept 3.2 million Americans, including nearly 1 million children, from falling into poverty. I don't even want to imagine the magnitude of the problem if we fail to extend unemployment insurance now. During this holiday season, more than ever, Americans feel there is no way out. Last week, a woman in Texas, who was originally from the state of Ohio, killed herself and shot her 2 children because they were denied SNAP benefits. One of those children has died. Mr. Speaker, this is desperation, homelessness at its worst. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Woolsey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since the spring of 2004, I've stood here in this very spot 415 times to call for an end to foreign wars and the start of a new, smarter approach to national security. In most of those speeches, my tone has been one of insistence and beseeching. Seldom have I been able to echo good news or declare a sense of accomplishment. But, Mr. Speaker, today is different. As the President will reaffirm in a speech at Fort Bragg today, and it moves me almost beyond words to say this, the war in Iraq is finally over. After 105 excruciating months, after so much heartbreak and despair, after so many shameful episodes such as the mission accomplished, Abu Ghraib, the outing of Valerie Plame, and so much more, our troops are finally coming home from Iraq, all of them. Much credit goes to President Obama for making good on his promise. When he was sworn into office, there were 142,000 U.S. service members deployed to Iraq. By the time the calendar turns in 2012, there will be zero. But this day would not have come unless some very brave people had spoken up for peace at a time when the polls and the conventional wisdom said that President Bush and his Iraq policy were unassailable. I've been proud to work in particular with my friends Congresswoman Barbara Lee and Congresswoman Maxine Waters in establishing the Out of Iraq Caucus. Many of our colleagues on both sides of the aisle stood shoulder to shoulder with us, including our late friend Jack Murtha, whose opposition to the war represented a major turning point in the Iraq debate. Of course, no one displayed more courage than the heroic men and women who served in Iraq with honor and selflessness. They present the best our nation has to offer. I only wish that their elected leaders had served them better over the last decade. But, Mr. Speaker, we must be careful. We must be careful about turning this into an occasion of triumph or celebration. The end of the Iraq War is welcome, but tragically overdue. Too much has been lost in precious American blood, in badly needed public treasure, and in our moral core as a nation. The end of this war comes too late for nearly 4,500 Americans whose parents, spouses, children and friends will miss them desperately this holiday season and every other day of the year. Many thousands more are home from Iraq with broken minds and bodies, with scars they will carry for the rest of their days. We must keep them and keep our promise to them to provide the benefits that they so need and deserve. I don't know how we atone for the deaths of thousands upon thousands of innocent Iraqi civilians. Our military occupation in Iraq is over, but our bilateral engagement with Iraq most certainly will go on. There is still plenty of human need in Iraq, and we must have an obligation to help alleviate that. It is critical that the United States be a peaceful and constructive partner to Iraq, investing in development, providing the civilian support that will empower their people and strengthen their democratic institutions. Now is the moment. Now, more than ever, we must move to a smarter security in Iraq. Finally, it is critical to remember that the end of the Iraq War does not mean we are a nation at peace. The war in Afghanistan lingers on violently and senselessly, still undermining our national security and weakening our country. We must, Mr. Speaker, move more quickly than ever to end that conflict. It is time to bring our troops home, all of our troops, safely home now. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Shimkus, for 5 minutes. Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to follow my friend and colleague from California who's retiring at the end of the Congress, which is another year. And even though we disagree probably too many times to count, no one questions her passion, her commitment, and her moral consciousness of doing the right thing. So give me a chance to publicly state that, and I look forward to serving with you the final year together. Mr. Speaker, I come to the floor to read a letter from a businessman in southwestern Illinois who is closing up the business. But even more timely than that was the Wall Street Journal editorial today. I mean, I was bringing the letter down anyway, so that I decided to, looking at the Wall Street Journal editorial, and it's titled, "Regulations for Dummies." The White House says its rulemaking isn't costly or unusual. The evidence shows otherwise. First paragraph, the White House is on the political offensive, and one of its chief claims is that it isn't the over-regulator of business and Republican lore. The list line has been picked up by an impressionable columnist, so it's a good time to consider the evidence in some detail. So they go through the analysis. It ends up by saying the evidence is so overwhelming that the Obama regulatory surge is one reason the current economic recovery has been so lackluster by historical standards. Rather than nurture an economy trying to rebuild confidence after the financial heart attack, the administration pushed through its now famous blitz of liberal policies on health care, financial services, energy, housing, education, and student loans, telecom, labor relations, transportation, and probably some other industries we've forgotten. Anyone who thinks this has only minimal impact on business has never been in business. Now the letter, which this is dated December, the column was dated December 14th. This letter was dated December 7th. You are the finest customer that we have served, or you are one of the finest professionals that have served these customers. After 61 years, of which 58 were wonderful years in the construction business, and having been associated with the greatest of people, it's with much sadness and disappointment that we have to announce that we will be closing December 31st, 2011. You all know that we've served the private sector. We've enjoyed working with industry, aviation, and all private businesses and entrepreneurs. We always felt that you were the pulse of the whole USA. It's sad to say that through no fault of yours that this pulse has slowed to a level that can no longer sustain the quality of service we have always felt obligated and more desired to provide. Our government is wonderful in that it provides for our common defense, our highway infrastructures, and a few other worthy endeavors. However, they are in fact an expense that we should enjoy funding. Though when they lose sight of the true fact that we in the private enterprise pay the bills and do not support an environment in which we can flourish with the fruits of our hard work, the funding will soon cease to exist. Government cannot produce revenue or prosperity, but they, like us, could enjoy both if they look at themselves as any other hired service organization that has to be worth the money they are getting paid. That's the way all of us have to operate, and what gives us pride in what we do. God bless you, thank you, and we pray that we all find American leadership to restore the pulse and pressure of the great private sector and the American entrepreneur again. You are the heartbeat of America. Again, God bless you. And so these two written, one column, one letter, occurring simultaneously almost, highlighting the point that it is this regulatory regime pushed on by the executive branch that is, if not outright destroying jobs, it's making it very difficult for jobs to flourish. That's why in the the bill last night, we moved the Keystone XL pipeline connected with the Boiler Act. That's why we've done some other bills to at least legislatively put barriers into the excesses of the regulatory regime here from the executive branch. Mr. Speaker, I think this was timely to come down to the floor and share this letter, and I thank you for the time, and at this time I yield back my balance of my time.
Pursuant to Clause 12, Paren A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until the hour of 12 noon today.
When the House returns at noon Eastern, they will take up a House-Senate compromise on Defense Department programs and policy.